We can just kind of hit off on the reform of the budget
Sure.
process.
Well, I think it is one of the most important things that we've tried to do around here. This budget system is broke. It's been dysfunctional, I think, for as long as anybody can remember. And the reason it is the political manipulation. The way the old model worked is the real political power in this building was based on controlling the purse strings. And that meant if you didn't do what I tell you to do, I'll cut your budget. Or if you do what I want you to do, I'll increase your budget. And that's just no way to run a state. I think if you look back at the trouble that we've had over the last 20 years, I can remember the last 20 years, and it was because we were politically manipulating the budget. We were spending more money than we were bringing in, and then we would raise taxes or fees. Or we would make the governor make the cuts and blame him. It is just tough. So what we've got to do is change that system. It's got to get away from political manipulation to a performance-based system. That way I can't influence it. That way I can help at least have influence, or at least have input into the system. As a legislator, I can have input. I can say, this is what I think the strategic goals of your agency and your core competency ought to be. But I shouldn't be able to say, I can threaten you with your budget. It should be based on outcomes, performance. We passed the Smart Budget Act here last year, 51-1. It never came out of the House committee. We're hopeful that Chairman Stringer will bring it out. Alan Nunley was the author last year. Chairman Davis is going to author it this year. It'll come through our appropriations process. Huge difference in this building that will change everything. I know you'll see illegal immigration again, an Arizona type law. There will be not only that for a secondary arrest. So if I arrest you for burglary or DUI or seat belts, I ought to be required to determine your status as a law enforcement agent, so we'll know who our illegal immigrants are in this state. And then secondly, put some enforcement behind E-Verify. So if companies are not using E-Verify, there's some enforcement mechanism and agency that will be responsible for that. I see the Attorney General more than likely as being someone who we would turn to on that. I think we're going to resist Obamacare with all lawful means. It will break this budget. 2014, it adds 300,000 Mississippians on Medicaid roll. That's with the 640,000 that we have now. That's nearly 1 million people on Medicaid. We cannot sustain that. No matter what we do in Mississippi, we couldn't afford the state match for that, so we've got to stop it. I also believe it's unconstitutional. One of the important things that we're doing is just really going to change the way we deal with the federal government, is forming a committee, a standing committee, that's going to restore the 10th Amendment. 3 members from the House, 3 from the Senate, and they will determine if federal laws that are being mandated to the state are A, constitutional, or B, an unfunded mandate. And if they are, based on a law that is being championed by Senator Roger Wicker, we will have standing on the federal level. We will be able to petition the federal government to say, stop this, because we believe it's unconstitutional, we believe it's an unfunded mandate. Something again to restoring the Founding Fathers and their 10th Amendment. Ethics reform. If I don't file my ethics report now, I have to pay $10 a day. Well, that's no deterrent. So we're going to try to increase that to $100 a day to simply make elected officials do what they should do, is file their ethics report. Secondly, the dumbest thing that we do is if we catch you violating the Open Meetings Act and you're a public official, the taxpayer has to pay your fine. Ethics Committee said you violated the Open Meetings Act, you're being fined for that, and they go to the taxpayers out of the general fund of whatever agency, whether it's government, city, or state, and they pay it. That's got to be stopped. Improving education. We've got to look at high school as not only a time to prepare students to go on to higher learning, but also a time to prepare students to go to a skills-based job. And so about the 9th grade, we're going to look at a totally new curriculum that says we're going to allow you to stay here at school and get your Carnegie units. We're going to allow you to go off when you get into 10th grade to a community college and learn a skill there at the Workforce Development Center, so that when you graduate, you can be an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, or a welder. It's going to change everything. Again, charter schools, we need real charter schools. I think even now, from President Obama to Phil Bryant to members of the Black Caucus in the House are saying, you know, we probably do need charter schools in Mississippi, and we're going to work hard on that. And then the Child Protection Act. We, unfortunately, have more children impregnated by adults in this state than any other state in the nation. It goes on in some communities without notice. What we're saying in the Child Protection Act that's passed here 3 different times in the Senate is adult men can't rape children. If you do, we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to have DNA that's going to be obtained from an abortion of a girl under 14 years of age, so we can identify the rapist, to identify the father, if not for criminal charges, for at least civil responsibility for child support. We're going to say that a teacher has to report a child under 14 that is pregnant, so that we'll know why this is going on in what areas, but more importantly, who's responsible for it. Again, something that everybody in this building should be clamoring to pass to protect these teenage girls from sexual predators. This law will do it. I hope again the House will take it up. So that's the majority of our legislative agenda, the things that we'll be fighting for from the Lieutenant Governor's standpoint, and of course taking on the budget and redistricting. We're going to change that system completely. It was an old, antiquated way of saying the House take the Senate plan and pass it without looking at it, and the Senate would take the House plan without looking at it. I think first that's a violation of the oath of office. The oath of office says I won't trade my vote for the promise of another vote, and so we literally cannot be doing those types of things here. And I think it'll get a better product. We deliberate both houses. We split as few precincts as absolutely possible. We follow the Justice Department guidelines, and hopefully we'll get out here with a fair plan.
Okay. 2 questions on the immigration legislation. You said the model's based on the Arizona model. As far as promoting it in the public sphere, it took a lot of hits in Arizona even from a public relations standpoint. Is there anything that we might be doing different here or your office?
Sure. You know, one of the things that we've done is we've looked at those portions of the Arizona law that have been challenged. And there are some that the federal courts have said this may be too much for a state to take on. And so we're going to try to adjust our laws. We're not about targeting anyone based on race or their ethnics or religion or any of those things. We're basically saying if you arrest someone and you have probable cause to believe that they are here illegally, then you should go about your duty as a law enforcement officer and determine that. We've passed those laws before in the Senate. We've passed laws in the Senate that said every law enforcement officer must determine the status of someone they have arrested. It died again in the House. We passed laws that said you can't aid and abet illegal immigrants. So I think it's the right thing to do. I think the federal government has abandoned their responsibility of enforcing illegal immigration laws. And again, the 10th Amendment allows the states certain rights, and one of our rights is not to have $25 million a year spent on illegal immigrants that come here.
Okay. And then on the reapportionment plan, you want to talk a little bit more in depth about that?
Sure. One of the things that we have now is almost 300 split precincts in the House plan and over 100 in the Senate plan. And that's just unacceptable. When you go into your precinct and they say if you live on the north side of the road, you can vote for this House member. If you live on the south side of the road, you ought to vote for this one. It's confusing. It drives people away from voting in those particular areas because they are confused. And the other thing that we've got to get away from is political gerrymandering. The idea that I can sit here and somehow draw lines to eliminate my competition or to take a certain street that I want that person to be in my district and say, go down that street and take the houses on the south side and leave the ones on the north side. We've got to be contiguous whenever possible. We've got to be very careful, as I said, in splitting precincts, no gerrymandering for political purposes. If we do those things and we do our due diligence by reading both plans and looking at both plans, I think we have a shot not only of getting a good redistricting plan, but changing the system the way that it has been done, the way it's been abused for generations in this building. And people seem to either not know it or care little about it outside of the Capitol. And we just need to make sure that we do it the right way this time. And once we do it, I think that 10 years from now, people will look back as this is the way it should be done from now on.
Okay.
Right?
Anything else you want to add, sir?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting budget time. We've got to be careful that we don't allow an election year to cause us to spend more money than we should. Politicians have a way of saying, I want to give money to this particular group because they're going to vote for me, whether it's schools or health care or whomever it might be. And we've just got to be careful not to do that. We've got to base it on needs and on outcomes and on the principles of how many lives will be lost if this agency is not funded, like the Highway Patrol, like mental health, and like the National Guard.